Meghan and Harry's crisis, completely of their own making, is they have no major projects, no major money
The
earned.
figures are now public, the reports are available for anyone to read, the warehouses are packed with unsold products, and the man who warned about this entire downfall years before most people even imagined it could happen is now standing in the middle of the aftermath with proof in his hands. Tom Bower, the investigative author who spent years examining the lives and decisions of Harry and Meghan, who spoke with more than 80 sources, including former employees, palace insiders, and figures from Hollywood, and who wrote the book that Meghan's supporters tried relentlessly to dismiss. That same man is now looking at the situation in 2026 and calmly saying, "I warned everyone." And on point after point, his warnings appear to have matched reality. Today, we're going to look closely at the details. We'll go through the finances, the charity filings, the streaming performance, warehouse reports, legal disputes, every piece of it, because at this stage, it is no longer rumor or celebrity gossip. What we are witnessing is a documented, traceable decline in both finances and reputation unfolding in real time. And by the end of this video, you will see how a couple who once secured a $100 million Netflix agreement, enjoyed worldwide visibility, carried royal name recognition, and held the sympathy of millions, eventually reached this point. Stay with me, because this story becomes even more complicated before any sense of clarity appears. Who Tom Bower is and why his voice carries weight. Before we dive into the figures, and we absolutely will, there is something important to address, because many viewers often ask the same question. Why should anyone rely on Tom Bower? It's a reasonable question, and the answer lies in his professional record. Tom Bower is not a celebrity gossip blogger or a random commentator posting rumors online. He is widely recognized in Britain as a serious investigative biographer. Over the years, he has written extensively about powerful public figures such as Robert Maxwell, Richard Branson, Tony Blair, and Boris Johnson. These books are not light celebrity profiles. They are carefully sourced investigations into people who often prefer not to be examined closely. When his book about Meghan and Harry was published, Meghan's public relations team moved quickly to challenge it. They labeled the work fiction, described it as biased, and dismissed it as a personal attack. Yet, as time passed, many of the themes Bower raised continued to reappear in real-world developments. Questions around charitable operations, disappointing streaming results, difficulties with lifestyle branding, financial strain, and highly public legal conflicts. He did not speculate. He gathered sources and reported what he found. And as events unfolded, the supporting evidence kept emerging. So when Tom Bower speaks today about where Harry and Meghan stand in 2026, his comments draw attention, not simply because they are dramatic, but because they follow a long record of investigative reporting. Now let's turn to the finances. The Archewell question, a charity surrounded by scrutiny. When Harry and Meghan introduced the Archewell Foundation in 2020, they presented it as a humanitarian project named in honor of their son Archie. According to their announcement, its purpose was to promote compassion, service, and meaningful change around the world. The branding was polished, the message inspiring, and the story powerful. But behind that polished presentation, critics and analysts would soon begin asking deeper questions about how the organization actually functioned. Carefully and repeatedly creating an impression that did not match the full reality. Let's look closely at the figures, because these details matter. And to be clear, these are not rumors or anonymous leaks. They come directly from Archewell's publicly filed IRS 990 tax records. Anyone can review them. In 2021, Archewell reported receiving about $13 million in donations. That marked its high point. It was the year the Netflix agreement was announced, the same period when the book advance arrived. Their financial position appeared strong. Media attention was largely positive. Oprah's widely discussed interview had just aired. Global interest in the couple was at its peak. Now move ahead to 2024. Reported donations had dropped to around $2.1 million, compared with approximately $5.3 million the year before. Take a moment to consider that shift, because the next figure raises even more questions. In that same year, total reported expenses were about $5.1 million. In other words, spending was more than twice the incoming donations. Read that again carefully. Expenses exceeded revenue by a wide margin. But the detail Tom Bower often highlights as most striking concerns how that spending was distributed. Of the $5.1 million listed as expenses, about $1.25 million went toward charitable grants and related programs. The remainder, close to $4 million, was reported under categories such as staff salaries, security, travel, and administrative overhead. Security alone has reportedly been estimated at around $2 million annually. When critics look at those figures, they ask an important question. What does it mean when a foundation that presents itself as a global humanitarian organization spends far more on operational protection and infrastructure than on direct philanthropic distribution? At one point, the organization employed about 5 staff members. By the end of 2024, several positions had reportedly been eliminated. Roughly 3 individuals left during what was described publicly as a restructuring or rebranding phase. And this is where the timeline becomes more complicated. Some former staff members reportedly believed the organization itself might be shutting down. Later, that suggestion was denied by representatives. Shortly afterward, the website was temporarily taken offline. Then, a new announcement appeared explaining that the structure would shift from the Archewell Foundation name to something called Archewell Philanthropies. Critics said the change created more confusion than clarity. But the rebranding process encountered another issue that proved harder to dismiss. Officials in the state of California issued a notice of delinquency concerning Archewell's filings. That notice indicated that certain required documentation had not been submitted properly during the required timeframe. During such periods, organizations are typically restricted from fundraising or distributing funds until the matter is resolved. That raises a broader question many observers have asked. If a smaller community charity experienced similar filing issues and received an official delinquency notice from its state authorities, how would the public and the media react? Would donors remain silent, or would scrutiny quickly increase? Critics argue that in this case, it was independent analysts and online researchers who drew attention to the issue before larger outlets focused on it. Throughout this period, Tom Bower's interpretation has remained consistent. In his view, Archewell was never structured like a conventional charitable organization built purely for philanthropy. Instead, he suggests it functioned partly as a financial vehicle connected to the couple's wider income streams, helping manage tax structures connected to major media contracts and publishing deals. To be clear, arrangements of that type are not automatically illegal. Many wealthy figures use foundations for financial and tax planning. What critics say made this situation unusual was the public presentation surrounding it. The foundation was introduced with significant publicity. Speeches and interviews framed it as a defining life mission. The couple frequently spoke about service and compassion. Their children's names were referenced, and the legacy of Diana was often invoked as inspiration. Yet at the same time, staff reductions occurred, structural changes were announced, and the state of California issued a delinquency notice that required correction. Bower describes this as a repeating pattern. Whenever something starts to fall apart, the narrative shifts. The website quietly disappears. A spokesperson offers a revised explanation, and the couple appears to hope the public will not examine the details too closely. But people are looking closely, and official records tell their own story. Now we come to the As Ever brand, what some critics call the unexpected $23 million jam problem that Tom Bower says he predicted from the beginning. If Archewell represents a slow, gradual unraveling, then As Ever looks more like a sudden and very public business failure. When Meghan's lifestyle label debuted in April 2024, many headlines celebrated it. Reports said her jam had sold out within hours. The publicity campaign worked exactly as designed. limited quantities, manufactured scarcity, and enthusiastic media coverage. The narrative was that Meghan Markle, former actress and former working royal, was reinventing herself as a lifestyle completely empty of substance. Tom Bower's assessment is direct and unsparing. In his view, Meghan offers little that feels new or genuinely original. He argues that the material often lacks depth and authenticity, and that the presentation can appear overly planned and carefully rehearsed. His criticism is that everything feels calculated rather than natural, and that audiences notice the difference. The ambition, he suggests, was to create something similar to the influence of figures like Martha Stewart. What appeared on screen instead, according to critics, sometimes looked far more ordinary, simple activities presented as something more significant than they really were. Tom Bower says that people inside the entertainment industry began recognizing the issue fairly early. According to his reporting, some Netflix executives realized within the first months that Meghan might struggle to consistently deliver the kind of content that attracts. In time, the audience simply drifts away, not out of anger or outrage, but with a quiet sense of indifference. And many commentators say that is where the story seems to stand in 2026. Harry in the courtroom becomes an image that captures the moment. So let's look at the legal battle, because while various financial and business issues were unfolding in California, Prince Harry was appearing in a London courtroom in a case that attracted significant attention. He was giving testimony in his lawsuit involving the publisher of the Daily Mail over allegations of phone hacking and unlawful information gathering. The events under discussion dated back many years, covering the period from roughly 2001 to 2013, long before Meghan entered his life. The case focused on Harry's own experiences growing up as a royal figure, dealing with intense media scrutiny and a press environment he has often described as intrusive and aggressive. During his testimony, however, the emotional tone of the hearing became widely discussed. At one point, Harry became visibly upset and said that the press had made his wife's life an absolute misery. That statement drew attention because the articles under dispute had been published years before he met Meghan. Observers noted the contrast between the time frame of the legal complaint and the focus of his emotional remarks. According to reports from the hearing, the judge intervened several times to keep the proceedings focused on the specific legal questions being asked. On multiple occasions, he reminded Harry to respond directly rather than engage in extended exchanges with the opposing legal counsel. Courtroom moments like that often receive intense media coverage, particularly when a public figure is involved. Meanwhile, Meghan remained in California and was not present at the hearing itself. Online activity from her accounts appeared at the same time the testimony was being reported, creating another point of contrast that commentators quickly noticed. Tom Bower's interpretation of the scene is very clear. He argues that Harry has become deeply influenced by the narrative surrounding his marriage, to the point that discussions about his own past experiences often circle back to Meghan. In Bower's view, the identity Harry had earlier in life, as a young royal navigating public expectations and personal struggles, has been largely redefined through the lens of his current relationship. The legal stakes in the case are also significant. If the lawsuit were unsuccessful, analysts say the legal expenses involved in such complex litigation could potentially reach many millions of pounds. For anyone engaged in lengthy legal proceedings, costs can accumulate rapidly through attorney fees, court procedures, and related expenses. Commentators sometimes speculate that losses in a case like this could require drawing on substantial financial reserves or other assets. That leads to another question many observers have begun asking about the broader picture.